this is such a...
And welcome back as we jump back into everybody's favorite redneck Texas family. We're going to talk today about Leatherface, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. My name's Golden, and joining me are...
Mr. Sir,
I'm Anthony.
and we were talking about Leatherface, colon, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
There's no colons in this movie, I looked.
No, they were all excised from the final edit.
They're on the cutting room floor, just colon after colon. I demand the original butthole cut.
And this movie, like, the thing it says,
bro.
the movie that was banned in so many countries, like, got an X rating and stuff. And the movie that you watch is not that.
I am so tired of the it's been banned, or the
it's a video nasty. It's a video nasty. It was banned in England.
And like the ones that are like
accent.
Like
video
so many
nasty.
people left the theaters, or there someone got sick in the middle of watching it, and it's like, stop, just stop, because you're giving unrealistic expectations.
I got sick watching this movie too. Got
Those
sick of watching this movie.
Those aren't aimed at you. They're trying to get the general masses to go see that horror film.
Are you saying I'm not?
And the general masses.
I'm a Colonel Mass.
Yeah.
This
Like
was
witches and
my
black masses.
as
I
we
get it.
discussed before. Like, this was my first foray into the Texas Chainsaw
What a bad way.
Massacre.
First
Yeah.
foray.
Yeah, it was one of those, your parent watching a movie, like nonchalantly watching the movie, and me going, "Wow, can I watch?" And they're like, "Yeah, go ahead. Fine, pull up a chair. This is good family, wholesome entertainment. You don't need to watch the
About a
Muppets.
family.
Watch this dude with a giant chainsaw." And
Yeah, you never watched them up.
right, and I only I only remember that this was the first one that I watched because the tow truck driver was the guy that I remember in the scene.
So this was a family movie night watch for you?
and it's about a family. Why wouldn't it be?
Thank goodness the windshield didn't get shattered.
Right? Because we would have been like, "That's not realistic." Actually, doesn't it? Wait, not
Yeah,
the front
couple,
windshield. The back windshield gets shattered, doesn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
Does that
you
not
get shot
apply?
out?
No. Well, those ones break differently.
Oh, okay.
See, a front windshield has safety glass. I will bring you back to my childhood and have to hear this goddamn story. But yeah, I remember the vividly can remember the scene where he's chucking body parts into the pond, and there's like, and that's what stuck with me through the whole like all this time. So I'm like watching, going, "Oh yeah. This is the first one I watched."
Well,
Obviously not the best, but
part of the reason why this movie is so bad is because through studio interference.
Right.
Like, this movie got
tale
absolutely
as old as
hacked
time.
to bits. They New Line messed with the director the entire production.
Well, there was like, according to the doc I watched, there was like 12 people that all had 12 different ideas about the film. So it was driving the director crazy. And like the cast said, he handled it well when dealing with them, but he was just overly stressed out. And the reason he was hired for New Line, we talked about this earlier, he was on a short list of directors, and that like at the bottom of that list. But he was the first one to say yes, that they're like, okay, he's a decent director. But he had made The Offspring, which is it's just an anthology horror film. But he had directed The Stepfather 2.
Yeah.
So
Which
that put
movie?
him on
That movie is
They-
good.
yeah,
I like
they
that
hired
one.
him- When they hired him, did they say, "Son, you'll go far"?
All I hear is crickets.
That's fair.
Is
Yeah.
that an Offspring song?
Yeah, maybe I might have butchered that.
You should have said keep them separated.
No, I should have
Which is
done
what
that.
New Line should have been with the director, because
Gotta keep 'em separated.
another thing that they did was they released that amazing teaser trailer of for the movie, and they put a hard date on it for November 3rd. And at this point, there wasn't even a script for the movie, so they they kept telling him they got it. He has to have it on time. They actually fired him at some point, and they couldn't find anybody to replace him. So 2 days later, they rehired him back with like stipulations.
Well, yeah,
that
they fired him on a Friday and rehired him on a Sunday.
and they had. So he had to submit like what his shooting schedule
Right.
was every single day, and they were like, and like that's not like a way to make something creative, is being under these hard timelines. You're trying to make a movie, and they're constantly giving him notes. This is too gory. This is blah blah blah. And even the final product, when he submitted it, it was even with them being annoying about it the whole time. They still were, and it got good. It tested positively.
So it's testing positively, and they have a foreign sales representative there. And he says the movie's great, but it's going to be banned overseas. So they're starting to figure out what they have to cut out. And then as they're going along, the MPAA gets involved, and they're like, this thing isn't going to get an R rating at all. So they're constantly chopping stuff. And I'm pretty sure at somewhere I remember seeing something that Bob Shaye's coming in the studio when they're editing, being like, that's got to go, that's got to go, that's got to go, and that's got to go.
I mean, that guy had like, he's the guy that brought like Nightmare on Elm Street and like really like
he's the head in New Line.
However, he is also the villain in many of those like stories as well. Like, yes, we can thank him for bringing Wes Craven to us, but we can also say, man, you fucked with a lot of those movies as well, like so much, like a lot, and especially like the later ones where he gets kind of like high on his own supply, like, well, these movies work because I made them work, right?
Which Nightmare on Elm Street does Bob Shaye have a cameo in? Is that the second or third one?
I
When they
believe
go to the bar, I think it's the
the
third.
second. It's the second one. It's the bar. He's dressed as a leather daddy.
Yeah, but that's not the third one.
No, it's the second one.
For some reason, I was imagining
because
guy
the
from
gym
three.
teacher is also there.
Is he?
Is like a
Yeah, it's funny because he wanted a
secretly
cameo
gay
so
thing.
bad.
Yeah, they made him a
He
leather
bought
daddy.
the bartender.
Best thing. I mean, sometimes like when you hear the MPA stories, like you got to wonder if like, 'cause you know how like anytime they do like courtroom dramas or stuff, they're like, oh, let's see what judge we get, and they're like, oh man, we got an easygoing judge this time. I got to imagine it's the same way with the MPA, because when you see some movies, they get like a PG rating, and you're like, how'd that get away
It
with
was
PG?
the turn of the '90s, so they
Yeah.
were hammering movies.
Oh,
like,
because the
so many-
parent groups were
And
probably
so
on
many of
PG.
those New Line movies like got that kind of treatment. Like
Yeah.
The Jason Goes to Hell was another example of just like absolutely hacked to bits. And some of those like,
There's a lot that goes.
and it's
into
not
this,
new,
so.
and it's not like specifically New Line, because also Part 7 also got a lot of, and at that point
It was
after
just that
those,
late '80s, early '90s,
Yeah,
when
like-
MPA would just dissect movies.
yeah, I'm so glad that has sort of like gone by the wayside. That's like a thing of the past, because now you can just put it out on streaming and just put it out without a rating at all, and who gives a fuck?
Actually, sometimes I think some movies even sell better when they're like unrated. It's like, wow, so you saved money by not having to put it through the rating board, and you get to make more. You're like,
And
it's unrated, and people are like, oh, I gotta watch the unrated cut.
And some of those are so egregious, like the Saw one. Literally, the only thing that got cut out of that movie was like 14 seconds of blood. Legitimately, the unrated cut there's like a 14-second difference.
Well, and I know like
The music is different too, because that one they use like the original music that they wanted and everything. So
I know it's not a horror movie, but like it was like I still remember when Euro Trip came out. I loved it, when it came out and everything. And then shortly, and I bought it, and then all of a sudden they're like, "Oh, we're selling the unrated version now," and I'm like, I gotta get that. I gotta see.
you sucker.
Yep. And what's funny thing is that honestly, I thought that the unrated cut was worse, because the only difference I saw was it was the scene where he ends up in the hot tub with the cheerleaders and he talks them out of their top. In the unrated version, they already had their top off, and I'm like, but I thought it was funnier watching him like be like, "Oh no, you got something on here," and she takes it off, because you know what I mean. Like I don't know.
Some
Well,
some
like,
of those are
that's
just
unrated.
like alternate cuts. and they
American
are-
Pie unrated version he was in a different position when he was having sex with the pie.
Yeah, I don't remember which is which, because I've seen both of them and it's been
doesn't
so
matter.
long. No, it doesn't.
Anthony's like, let's get back to the
Yeah,
horror."
because
You don't want to talk
don't
about
like
Jim?
comedy.
Jim,
I want to
making
talk about it, but I just
sweet-
think
sweet love
I
for the
think
pie.
it'd be better if we got back on topic.
Anthony doesn't like comedy because he's a joyless adult.
Okay, I love comedy. But
You don't, obviously.
I am a lover of comedy.
Aye.
Why did the chicken cross the road?
it doesn't compute.
Error.
We're all gonna get nasty
Okay.
messages later.
You got a blue screen. Shit. Sorry, I was talking about you.
Well, we did get a black screen earlier on camera 1, so I was like, oh,
it was
shit.
this face just broke it. Back to Texas Chainsaw.
Yeah, back to Texas Chainsaw. I'm not the one that derailed it.
Yes, you
Golden.
are.
You're trying to get it back on rails, so I
Yeah.
thought maybe you had something you wanted
I
to
have
say.
tons of stuff to say. So, I just don't know where to start. But you guys, Golden, you'd seen the trailer before? We watched it before the show.
Yes. Yeah, I'd seen the trailer. I mean, a long time ago, so I forgot it. But like as soon as it started playing, I'm like, oh yeah.
Kane Hodder
I mean,
plays.
it's iconic. It's huge.
It's an amazing teaser, and it really it sells the idea of you for a third Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie. It's a parody of Excalibur was coming out around the same time, and so what New Line did was they put out like a parody trailer where a lady in the lake throws up a golden chainsaw over to Leatherface, who catches it and lightning strikes it. And Leatherface is played by Kane Hodder. It's just an incredible trailer. Look it up. Like it's definitely worth like the 45 seconds it is.
It is. It's such a good teaser.
But then they made that before they even had a script to the movie. And the trailer ends with coming to theaters November 3rd, which it did not. It came out it got dumped in January.
Right. And so we were watching also a little segment from the doc earlier before the show. So I just wanted you guys to see that, where Viggo Mortensen, who's in the movie, big star now, not at the time, just flubbed his
one of
audition.
his first roles.
He flubbed his audition, and he didn't get cast. So the guy that they had cast, it didn't work out, and he ended up getting called back to be in the movie.
And speaking of that, their first pick for director of this movie was none other than Peter
they reached
Jackson.
out to Peter Jackson, yeah.
Well, they wanted him. That's what I said. You don't gotta fucking correct
first
me on
pick.
that.
Well,
He was their first pick. Yeah, that's who
Actually.
they wanted. Because he was a New Line guy at the time. This is even long before Lord of the Rings. He had written a spec script for a fifth Nightmare, or maybe no, it was the sixth one. That ended up being Freddy's Dead. But his script, it's out there. You can read it. It's I haven't read it personally, but from what I've heard of it, it sounded really cool. And it sounded like way too expensive for something, and experimental with how they wanted to portray Freddy and everything. They kind of took the elements of that and used it in Freddy versus Jason, where people don't remember him and he's weak, and he accidentally kills just by pure happenstance he kills a kid, and then they kind of brings the Freddy legend back to life, and then he kind of becomes more powerful throughout the movie. That was sort of from what I remember of the story. That's what it was. But anyways, back to Leatherface. What did we think? Well, so some of the stuff that got cut out were gore effects. So there's a person that sort of is helping them. It was a victim. Her boyfriend, they got captured a week before the events of the movie, and she had escaped and has been living out in the woods. Well, Leatherface catches up to her at some point, and the death that they show in the movie is Leatherface just kind of sticking the chainsaw in her, but they don't show any of that. It's just her reaction. The original death was she was getting split right up in half. They filmed it. Greg Nicotero in the behind the scenes thing that I watched was underneath the thing, spraying the blood up through a fire extinguisher. However, he was right under where the chainsaw was, so he's just getting foam shit. You can't see anything. He's just getting crap just poured on his face the whole time. And I guess you can watch a more true to the actual vision of the director version that came out in 2018. I haven't personally watched this one yet. It sounds cool. Anthony has it.
Yeah.
Is that the one you watched, or did you watch?
No, I watched the
one that's available, more readily available. This isn't really streaming anywhere. You'd have to rent it on Vudu, or I'm sure YouTube has it as well.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I own it digitally on Vudu, but I have the Blu-ray, so I wanted to watch some of the special features on there, so I just watched that version.
Gotcha. The movie also had an alternate ending that the director didn't know about until he saw the movie.
Yeah.
So Ken Foree dies in the movie.
Yeah, like dies.
Yeah. That's one of the things that they showed is like when he's fighting with Leatherface in the water. Leatherface just takes his head right up to the chainsaw and like saws it.
And he comes back with a little band-aid.
Yeah.
end of
And
the
so she's alone and a cop car pulls up and she's about to go to the cop and the little girl pops up from the back seat and then she just starts laughing like, "Oh, I'm never going to get out of this. Like
Yeah.
this is my life now."
So the characters that tested well in test screenings, they brought back for that alternate ending.
Gotcha. Yakety yak. Don't
Set
talk
up the-
back.
Yeah, to set up sequels, you know.
Yeah, that was the thing. Another thing that New Line was trying to do, that the director wasn't really. He wanted to make just like a standalone movie, and New Line was all about, we need to franchise this bad boy. We need to milk it for everything.
Well,
that
I
it's
mean,
worth.
when you're already making the third one, I feel like that's a safe idea.
I mean, that's true,
But it's also like you don't need to like if one thing horror movies has taught us, you don't need to set it up for there to be able to be a sequel
right.
because you can kill off everybody your main
Well,
your main protagonist and then still be, or antagonist and then still be like, yeah, he's back. This girl has psychic powers.
Well, it's funny that they call it part 3 when they completely like the opening crawl completely like cuts out part 2 of the continuity. But then in the beginning of the movie with the reporter is Stretch. Like it's the same. It's
Go ahead.
Carolina Williams. And they say it's Stretch, but like they don't name her in the movie as Stretch, but
Right.
it's implied.
Well, not to mention that the Saw says the Saw is family.
Yeah, it's the same Saw from the it's a phrase that they say that they use in the second one.
Yeah.
It sort of became the mantra of the series.
Is there ever like in a horror movie when you're gonna put a creepy little girl in it, you just have to give her a weird doll, right? Like that's a that's a standard. Like we're gonna put in this creepy little girl, which I like that aesthetic. I always do it. I enjoy like just the creepy kids. And it's always like, look, I have a skull doll.
So
and
she
I'm a little
was
stabby.
she was supposed to be the one that pulled the thing that smashed the guy in the head with the sledgehammer.
Yeah, and it cuts away and you don't see any of that.
They cut. Yeah, you don't see nothing. But the MPAA was like, well, we don't want a little girl killing anybody, so they just cut it in a way that it looks like nothing happens.
Yeah, according to the director, she's also supposed to be Leatherface's daughter. And
so strange.
The writer was talking to, and he was saying that his idea for this is that Leatherface has found like a new group of misfits that he's sort of adopted as his family. That's why all the characters are gone, because he didn't want to have any of the original characters.
Yeah, and the little
besides Leatherface,
And Grandpa.
The doll's name is Sally, is obviously as a nod to the final girl from the first movie who died or something in an asylum or something. The crawl is crazy.
I do like the
sets up what's going to happen.
The one scene in this movie that I really enjoyed was when the one guy throws Leatherface's thing in the oven with the fire on, and then Leatherface like forces him to reach in and get it, and then he makes sure he doesn't use his hook hand. He like makes, and I feel like because in so many of the movies it's Leatherface is the muscle and he's bullied and all this stuff. So it kind of felt good like to see him like fighting back against this family that always like his family mistreats him in all the fucking movies, and like just for him to be like, oh okay, reach in there and get it, and he's like, I'll use my hook. He's like, no,
so
you use your good hand and you'll like it, and the fucking Vigo's like, nope, let it happen.
So while
let it happen, Ma.
So while we're talking about things we liked about the movie, because I know I've been shit talking it, there are some things that I find enjoyable, like Leatherface with the speak and say, and it has got like the clown on there, and he just keeps typing food, meat, you know. He just keeps getting it wrong. He's getting pissed off at it. I thought that was kind of funny.
It was enjoyable, yeah.
I think Ken Foree's really good. Right. He always brings it. He plays like he's like the second hero, but you get and he holds his own, but he survives improbably. Yeah, because they were kind of setting up him and her were gonna be like the fucking Leatherface hunters or some shit. But the movie did like absolutely terribly. It opened at 11 when it came out. It's just not
It got
was
pushed
really
to
well.
January.
Yeah, it
too,
got pushed to
which is like-
January. Like it just got, and that was before, now there's not that bad of a stigma around like stuff that's released in January and like the beginning of the year. That kind of has gone away. But back then, your movie comes out in January. It's code for this movie's a piece of shit. We just want it. We just want to be rid of
Well,
it.
yeah, they don't want it to hurt their numbers. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, January is notoriously the month of the best time to watch horror movies because I know that I'm usually sitting around the house going, "Man, I could go for a good scare." It's
I mean,
spooky season.
I kind of do that, but
Yeah,
that's me
I'm
all year long.
round. I was gonna say I'm all year round, but like it's just like if you want, more people to get into it, it's like maybe October.
I mean, on the opposite end of that, I just watched a January horror movie. I watched Night Swim on Friday, and boy, or as I like to call it, Death Pool, the pool that eats people, because that's what it does. That's how it kills people. Is they just get like absorbed into the pool. It's got Wyatt Russell in it. Is like a baseball player that gets like an injury. So they move into this house that had already like swallowed people before. And when he's swimming in the pool, he starts feeling stronger. He can play baseball again. And I'll just kind of spoil it because I don't recommend this movie. To avoid it. It's not good. It's kind of like I don't like to say PG-13 horror movies are all like this because there are some good ones, like Drag Me to Hell is PG-13. That is a good scary movie. But Night Swim, like the premise of it is this house was built on top of where it used to be a spring where people would, it was like a wishing well kind of thing. So you would give the water your deepest desires, and then you would have to sacrifice a life for your wish to come true. So he like inadvertently wished to become, be a baseball player again, and the pool starts trying to get one of the kids, and it's just lame as hell. This is not good. Just don't watch it. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about that because I watched it and I needed to get that off of my fucking chest.
I want a pool. I want a pool that grants
is
wishes.
horror
And
related,
all you got to
so.
do is like sacrifice someone to it. 'Cause, I mean, there's plenty of people out there.
I mean, that was a really nice
Chuck into a
house.
pool.
They had a pool that was not used for the person that lived there before didn't use it at all for 14 years, and they didn't. And they never said why, and then they found out why because it was an evil pool.
It's always evil stuff.
Like I don't own a pool. Like I don't really know anybody that has an in-ground pool, so it's not really something that scares me personally. So
The sequel is going to be one of those like hard plastic kiddie pools you can get at Walmart for $10 on come summertime. Like, oh, it's just smaller. How did my daughter disappear in this? I don't know, but man, my arm feels better.
the only thing I can say that I did like in that movie was when they show the people like drowning and stuff in the pool, they'll give them visions of the people that before that have been like sacrificed, and some of those people are some of the designs of the ghosts are cool looking. The end.
The end.
0
That's
out
the
of
only good part.
4 thumbs down, bitches. That was a bad one. Don't watch it.
So Texas Chainsaw.
Yeah, so this one, yeah, it's definitely so far the weakest entry that we've watched for sure, by far.
I mean, it definitely has. I think it still has some enjoyable parts, but yeah, it's not.
Yeah.
as good. It's not going to be as iconic. It's
No, and
doesn't
like
have the good mix of the comedy that two had.
no, and like I want to say like part of the reason why it sucks so much is because it was cut to hell, but this it doesn't really seem like there was direction either. Like some of this stuff just everyone's playing to the cheap seats. It's just like like I get it because it's Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but they it just becomes the tone for the rest of the series. It's just like everybody is over the top to a point where it's just like
Everybody in the family.
yeah,
It
everyone
felt
in the
like-
family is over the top to a point where it's just like the one person that isn't though is the mom character, who I think we all agree was like one of the highlights of the movie.
Yeah, I think very well played in that with the whole like the matriarch of the family and still motherly, but the mother of a really bad family.
Right.
I feel like with this movie, what they did was they were like, man, you know who everybody liked in 2 was Chop Top. What if the entire family
was
Chop Tops? And it's like, you might as well, and then they're like, well, we'll call it Leatherface. But it's actually Leatherface and a family of Chop Tops. Because that's really what it felt like.
And
That everybody
it
was
felt-
trying to be that character.
And there
you
was
can only have one of them.
and it felt like they wanted to go with like a little more dimension with some of them. Like Tex does seem like a little more sensitive than the other ones. Like he's putting
Yeah.
on like a face. Because what is he?
There's definitely a duality of character there, because you get a very effeminate side to him later on, where he comes off very masculine in the beginning.
Right. Where he's like, 'cause I will say this, like you only suspect him of being a bad guy because the movie is Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and if you've watched the other two, that you kind of know what's going on. However, like Viggo Mortensen does have a very like trustworthy face. He seemed like
He's a handsome man.
he believably seemed like a friendly guy in the beginning of the movie. Like, and he beats up the guy that works at the gas station, or you assume he beats him up.
We're like, I've fallen for this before.
So
I'm not falling for that again.
there's just some stuff
Also-
in this movie. Just when Leatherface is like chainsawing the car, there's a shot where you see the chain just like off the chainsaw, and it's just flopping all over the place.
Yeah. And like I was saying before, the show-
1 second, in the gas station when the girl's walking by it and you see all the animals hung up, one of the animals is just a giant rubber tarantula spider. Okay, I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, like I was saying before we started recording, the odds of you driving through middle of nowhere Texas and running into a hitchhiker that looks like Viggo Mortensen are pretty much not going to happen ever in your life. They're not going to look like him. That was probably one of the most unbelievable parts of the movie. We're like, wow, look at him. This is a handsome guy that he looks like he's the Texas version of Crocodile Dundee. Anthony's favorite movie.
Yep.
Yes, I got to bring back that.
There's a
So
part.
happy.
There's a part when Tex gets lit on fire, and at that point
He has the most gruesome death in this
he
movie.
he goes from Viggo Mortensen to very obviously stunt coordinator Kane Hodder. The body shape just turns into Kane Hodder's body shape as he's on fire. And I only know that because I watched the Kane Hodder documentary where he just talks about how much he was like the guy that got set on fire until he get burned the shit out of himself, and then he didn't do that anymore. But that was after this movie.
Everybody knows that things expand when they're heated. That's why.
He's not a fat guy, but he's a bulky
Well,
guy. He's
definitely bigger than.
I mean,
Viggo
if you
Mortensen.
watch the trailer for Leatherface, he's the guy that is in the costume, and he's a big guy. He plays Jason for God's sake.
He's like
so.
probably the most famous Jason, I'd say.
Oh, for sure.
Oh yeah.
I got to meet him at one of the cons, and my friend paid for a photo shoot with him, and she's a horror person and into some fun stuff. So she's like, "Can you choke me for this picture?"
It's
And
what he always
and he
does. That
goes,
is
"I
his
can't."
signature move.
He actually said, "I can't anymore." Like legally, he's not allowed to put his hands around people's necks for photo shoots. I think someone like he got in trouble for it or something.
Oh,
But he can do like the arm lock around the thing, but he can't like physically put his hand around.
because
people's
that's
necks
like
anymore. And she was
that's
so
the Kane
disappointed.
Hodder move. Like when you said got a picture with Kane Hodder, I almost interrupted you and said, "What did he do? He put his hand around her neck."
No, she wanted it. And, like, he's like, I'm sorry, I can't do that anymore. I'm not allowed to legally. And it's like,
Gotcha.
another like when we were talking about things that were just like bad about the movie, because that's a fun topic. I remember
there's
that
lots.
right towards the end, one part that I was just like, come on, was when she's in there, she has the shotgun, and the guy that ran the gas station is like, and he
Last
pops his head
chance.
up, and she has the shotgun like right in front of his face, and then she just lets him stand up, and I'm like, come on, really? Like,
I know.
how are you not gonna just pull that trigger
Well,
when his face is against the fucking barrel? Like, that's the best time.
That's because
Sploosh.
that ending was filmed after the fact or whatever. And they were already like, we're not going to do any gore. So they shot something where they didn't have to shoot. They didn't have to do anything. They just had him fall backwards.
Just and then get dragged out of the bed of the truck. But I was just like, come
There's
on.
roadkill
If you
all
were in
over
that
Texas
situation
road.
where you're just finally trying to escape this, and dude's face is right in front of the barrel. How do you not?
I mean, if that movie was made earlier in the 80s, like if that scene was made during Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2 era, that would have been a Tom Savini head blowing off right then and there.
Kind of like Geyser. Or
Yeah,
Geyser of
just like
blood.
Maniac style, like just the shotgun right to the face.
Well, it's just like because I read the book Evil Dead Companion, which was about the making of Evil Dead movies. And
Oh, that's what it was about?
that's one. Yeah, it's weird. The title's very misleading.
I thought it was about Citizen Kane.
It was. It was my Citizen Kane. But he says like,
Your Bible.
like that people were like, yeah, you like he was talking to somebody about what does it take to make a successful horror movie, and the guy said you got to make the walls just drip blood, like just so much blood. There should be blood running, and that's why actually in the one scene they show all the blood running like into the light bulb and all that stuff because he took it quite literally.
Yeah, the thing I like about the original Evil Dead is like even the music dies at the end of the movie. Like the whole movie just dies. Like as the credits are rolling, the music just like slowly like gets chopped away, and it just until you're just left with silence. The movie just dies.
And the postcard moon.
God.
Or no, sorry,
Speaking of bad special effects, I noticed when the two leads are driving, the background just looks like fucking Toonsis the driving cat. This is like the worst driving background shit. It's just like they just look like they're flying all over the road. It looks like
and yeah,
I knew it's such an old reference. I knew at least Golden would understand what that was.
I like to like
My favorite fucking other than Mr. Bill, my favorite fucking Saturday Night Live old stuff.
when I was watching the movie and I messaged the group and I'm like, hey, isn't this dude in this the guy from Troll 2? And of course, Mr. Sir's like, yeah, Ken Voorhees. And I'm like, stop, no.
I remember that. Yes,
I was talking about the kid in the beginning. Looks just like the kid that was like, then they're gonna eat me.
the kid, the guy, the boyfriend of the final girl. Yeah, he looks like the little wiener guy from Troll 2.
He successfully survived
turned into a
Nilbog,
tree.
but then was murdered in Texas. Poor guy.
They're driving cross country. They were going from California to Florida, I believe, and that's what would lead them going through Texas. She was going to New York. I don't know. I guess that would be faster to go to Florida first, I guess.
Well, yeah, it's always easier to go like this than this. Like
Right.
The shortest line between two
Yeah.
points is never just a straight line. It's always an L. It's the best way to do it, especially because people always talk about how nice and relaxing it is to drive through Texas, where you drive for 3 days and you're still in the same fucking state.
Well,
where they kill you.
One other thing I liked in the movie was when Viggo Mortensen is trying to con them into bringing him with them, is he gives them a route that would just lead them into nothingness, like and so when they're being menaced, they go, oh, let's just take that road. Let's take that road that the hitchhiker told, that the text told us, and from that is what screws them.
He's like, but
so
I got this
he still manipulated them into doing what he wanted, but in a more non straightforward way. That I thought was clever.
Yeah, I like what, because he's like, no, why doesn't that show this road on this map? And Morgan's
He's like, that's from
what does the date say on that? And he's like, oh, fucking 1902. It's like, exactly. It's like, I know better.
It was an outdated map from when probably from whenever Leatherface escaped. Yeah, part of that was part of the crawl, like suggests that they went on trial and everything for that as well. Like that part was wild, and I think they gave Drayton a different name too. Did they?
I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't remember either, but it seemed like they really kind of they tried to separate themselves from the second one completely, make it a different.
That's the thing is like I just glazed over the crawl. Texas Chainsaw Massacre, like a sequel to like a franchise. I don't need any setup. I already know what I'm going in for.
Yeah,
I need all the setup.
but as like a thing to like. I'm messing on my words.
Previously on Texas Chainsaw.
Yeah, like to kind of catch you up is and fill in. It was just like the lore that they wanted you to have from what happened in 1974 to now. It was pretty wild, especially considering that they're like, we are going to completely ignore. Was that just like it must have been a rights thing because Canon was the people that made that. So maybe they just didn't want to associate with it.
I think it was
Also
just the writer. They had
Gotcha.
David J. Shaw. I can't remember his name, but he wrote like a bunch of horror novels in the 80s, just like real splatter.
He also
stuff.
he also wrote a treatment for part 4 that ended up being the Dream Child or whatever.
He's like, remember everything that happened in Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2? No, you don't. That would have been a great crawl.
It was sort of before home video really blew up as well, kind of. So there is a chance that people didn't even watch the second one. And so I guess it was more of like a clean start, and they wanted to do their own kind of thing and start their own franchise. That's what the intention was, at least. But
I think that's one nice thing
they
about
shot
horror.
themselves in the foot, literally, like seriously.
I feel like horror movie franchises, you can just write one and go, we're gonna take it from this point and ignore all these things, like just randomly. Like, isn't that something to do with Halloween? Like, doesn't Halloween have so many weird arcs? They're like, no, this one is part of this story arc, but you have to ignore these.
Yeah,
ones.
this one is like the beginning of the diverging timelines of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre series, and it just becomes even more convoluted and confusing from here as to what film belongs to what one. Most of them are just direct sequels to the first one, ignoring everything else.
And to answer your question, Golden, unless you count 3, it really doesn't start until H2O, where Halloween diverges, but Texas Chainsaw Massacre kind of does it throughout the.
Well,
except for 2.
I would say no. Part 4 kind of ignores part 2, right?
Yeah,
yeah. So
that's what I'm saying.
Well, so there's Halloween 1 and 2 are their own thing. Then there's Halloween and Halloween Part 4, and then also there's Part 3, which is nothing.
Supposed to be a continuation on from 2.
Are you sure?
She's supposed to be Jamie's daughter, or Jamie Lee Curtis's daughter, Laurie Strode's daughter. She's even got a picture of her.
All right, I understand. I know that it's like Laurie Strode, but I didn't think that it was. Well, I get. I see what you mean.
I can make a new.
I'll defer to you.
I can make a new Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie, and have it bring all those into continuity.
You could.
Here's all you do. Here's all you do. Ready?
Make a bunch of different other faces.
It was franchised. Is it back? Back in the 80s, franchising was huge.
4 that is literally like what the twist of 4 is like, oh yeah, we are like all over the country doing this. Like, this is not unique.
It's brilliant. Like,
it's not just in
like
Texas.
We have like 20 different leather faces. All you have to do is pay the franchise fee. We send you some human faces. You slap them on a big dude. Here's a chainsaw. Franchise fee. It's like Burger King did when they had Kid Vid.
I think it's more like a Chuck E. Cheese, where we'll send you, we'll give you the Chucky, and then you just got to fill up the rest with staff.
See, the problem was
be killing you.
The problem was when they franchised for 3, they somehow sent them all the character stats for Chop Top multiple times, and they're like, "Oh, we're all." It seems weird that all of us are supposed to be playing like the same type character. Like, yeah,
actually,
bring our daughter in.
I think it's less Chop Top and more Hitchhiker from the first one. All of them have that energy,
that manic,
right? Like
they also
the mom is sort of the mother character sort of plays the cook role, but that is sort of split between her and the tow truck driver, the guy that's got the earring.
But he's
Like-
also kind of mixed with Tex too.
Yes.
They're like interchangeable.
Yeah. That is like the problem with it with this is like the family people are all too similar. Like
Yeah.
there's not enough like and they don't really fight too much other than when they throw when the guy throws the Walkman into the oven. Like other than that they all pretty much work.
And he was so
all get
unmemorable
together.
as a character that like don't even know his name.
I don't.
I like
He gets his ear blown off, and that's one of the gore effects that actually is in the movie. Is his ear flying
I
off?
think when they franchised Texas Chainsaw Massacre,
They cut off his fingers too, but they cut away from it in the movie.
Yeah, and there's obvious other stuff like they clearly probably showed the nails being driven through her hands and all that stuff, and showed that a lot.
You won't leak. If we don't leak, we can't feed Grandpa.
Yeah, and they show
They did
the
graphic
head,
imagery.
and they put that bowl under there. They show her doing that, and it's just not in the movie. A little bit of it is, but it's.
Were you waiting for that corpse just to start moving?
Yeah.
Like
I honestly was until he gets shot in the head, and it's literally dust.
husk. It was just the husk of it. It's just like, oh, they've literally been just pouring blood into this fucking corpse. He's not coming back. He came back in the first two. I thought he'd come back. I thought he was gonna get. Then they were gonna hand him the hammer, and he was just gonna do that floppy hammer thing, which I love. God, I love that part in all the movies that it's in. I love watching them give this ancient person a fucking hammer and watch him try to brain somebody.
You went to school with him,
I
right?
did. Yeah, he was.
You guys-
He was a
he
few
in your
years below me,
graduating
but
class, yeah.
yeah, he was like my
Back when the
friend's little
slaughterhouse
brother.
was still operating.
He was back. He was my friend's little brother. Yeah,
It's a little brother,
he's always annoying,
kid brother, blood
hanging out when we were trying
blood
to
drinker.
trying to go play with our stick and hoop.
Okay.
Age ago.
We're going down from the public hanging for as our afternoon entertainment.
Yeah. and As far
Burned
as
a couple witches.
And burn through the ditches.
as far as Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3 goes, I mean it's watchable.
Yeah.
And if you enjoy the series, you need to at least watch it once. I feel like it's not something that we'll get into some sequels later on. You could just completely skip.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, as much as we're shit talking
Sweet, I
this
can
one,
skip
this isn't the worst
Not you.
one.
Not if
This
you're
isn't
reviewing it.
this isn't the worst one. The series does have peaks and valleys. The peak, unfortunately, was the first one. Like it was absolutely the
Yeah.
pinnacle, and it's just varying degrees of like whether it's good or bad, and like the
Eh.
valleys of the bad,
Or better or worse than the last one.
Yeah. I mean that is probably once we start getting into like the remake and then the sequels after the remake, then it becomes like, well, at least it wasn't,
Some of them are
Texas
just like
Chainsaw 3D, for example.
some of them are just like palate cleansers. So
Or
like if you go to like a
the other-
wine tasting, they'll give you those the oyster crackers and be like,
Yeah.
here, munch on this, so that you can enjoy the next one more. So that's what some of the sequels are. They're
This
like,
has
here,
hints-
watch this.
This movie has hints of Leatherface. I don't know. I
Watch
don't
this
really know.
because the next one we make you'll love if you watch this garbage first.
I mean,
Just
there's
set the bar
another.
low.
There's one that in this series that I haven't watched, so I can't really speak on it. But it's also called Leatherface.
Mm. You haven't seen that?
I've not seen that one. Another origin story movie. Barf.
I feel like
Gives a fuck.
I feel like you should never
Seriously.
you should never actually call the movie like leather because I feel like that panders to the people that are horrible that watch movies. They're like, yeah, I watched that movie Freddy, and it's like you didn't stop. That's not what the movie's called. So they're like, everybody just keeps calling it Leatherface. Let's just fucking make one called Leatherface. No, make them call it by the real name.
I don't know, man. Like A Nightmare on Elm Street is a little harder to remember than the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. That title really kind of sticks out.
Oh yeah, but
I mean, I don't
People
think
still
I
say
don't.
Leatherface.
I mean, I don't not calling it that. People don't call Halloween Michael Myers.
I guarantee you somebody does.
I mean, Jason and Freddy. That's pretty much exclusive for
Jason.
those. Oh, and
Oh,
Chucky.
Jason.
But that's now there's a show called Chucky.
People call Michael Myers Halloween.
Yeah.
Remember
some
when
people-
Halloween walked in with that
Some
knife?
people do. It's me right here. Halloween's gonna fucking kill you.
All right.
Watch out for Halloween.
Jason.
So you guys got anything quick to add before we end the show?
No, I think I
feel like it's
touched on all my points.
this
I wrote
one-
some notes.
I feel like this one's an enjoyable one if you just do the shut off your brain and just watch it because you just want to see what the that lovable cannibal family's been up to. They're just kind of checking in. This is like their Christmas card, like the family.
There's some enjoyable bits to it for sure.
Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely.
and what really sucks about like all the gore effects and stuff getting cut out is who was behind the effects. Like Greg Nicotero, Robert Kurtzman did the effects on it as well. Like
Heavy
come on.
hitters.
Yeah, people that went on to do awesome things. Like
Plus, I mean, you're watching this kind of movie. You're watching it for the fun splatters and all that stuff.
that's what they hired the director to do. Like they told him, we want the movie to be what people in the 70s imagined it to be. We wanted it to be like gory, bloody, over the top. And once they started making it, they had all these guys, they hired all these awesome practical effects guys, and they're like, well, guess what? We changed our mind.
It's like
for
making,
no reason at all.
It's like making a Bond movie and being like, but he's not going to have a single gadget. No gadgets, no spy work.
I don't know.
Yeah.
No, it's the same thing. Don't you say I don't know.
He does have a pretty gnarly chainsaw.
He does.
I guess that thing weighed 180 pounds. There's a 3-foot bar on it.
Well, have you ever picked
It's
up
like the
a
Mandy
real
chainsaw.
Yeah,
Like-
of course.
like a industrial like they,
Well, no,
those
not
things are
for like sawing
those
huge
things
ass
are
logs, but
really heavy, and then you add like the huge one on. I mean, it was no Mandy size chainsaw.
No,
No.
the one in Mandy is like Excalibur. That
But I
fucking
do
thing
love
is
the fact that
huge.
like, and I was thinking about that when watching this movie.
like
That
Cloud
as,
Sword.
as a killing weapon, chainsaws are not practical. They're because they're a close range weapon.
they're
that If
loud.
you get too close range, it's useless. And it's more of the intimidation factor of this giant chainsaw thing coming
Well,
at
yeah,
you. But
it's what it can
One-
do.
it's
like-
what it the
Right.
amount of damage that it's going to inflict.
I mean,
like,
this thing
watch,
can
like-
chop down a tree. What it'll do to your flesh is
absolutely, but like when you see it in being used, once it gets too close, it's like, well, I can't do anything.
I
with it.
also it'll also visually a really awesome looking weapon.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely,
it's just- it sounds cool. It's cool looking. Like I get what you're saying. Like in using it as like I'm going to actually kill somebody with this, they could probably get away from you because you're trying to run with a chain. Like we're carrying this heavy.
and you're not a
thing.
silent stalker.
No,
You're just like,
But
I
that's-
wonder where the killer is.
that's what. That's a
That's
good. That's a part of the reason why it's like set in like the middle of nowhere, Texas, is because you could logistically get away with doing that kind of shit.
Like I mean, I even have like I have a blazer that's covered in murder weapon type things, and there's chainsaws all over it and obviously a Evil Dead fan. I love the
Motel
idea of
Hell.
the chainsaw, and like the chainsaw is, I think it's more of a mentally thing because like just saying in use, machete I think is gonna beat chainsaw.
Gun.
Gun. Well,
Like,
yeah,
that's
I mean,
why, but you
shotgun.
you don't use those in like a horror movie. That's why because like if in Scream they had a gun, like other than the one scene in the newest one. That scene though is fucking badass when Ghostface has the shotgun. God, that's it.
Could you imagine like if they made a horror movie
But-
and the stalking killer was just like had a sawed-off shotgun? It'd be like, because I feel like just as iconic as the killers and the thing is always going to be like the weapon.
Well, Maniac.
That's true. He uses a lot of different stuff
Yeah.
in that movie.
but like,
Shoots
is
a
it?
guy in the face with a
Yeah,
shotgun,
just
though.
like blows his fucking
The
head
CG
off.
effect
It's
is
so
awesome.
cool. Yeah, that one. So I was talking with Anthony about possible like things we could do, and one of them was original versus remake. And I think Maniac would be a really interesting one because the remake is so different from the original one. And I just want an excuse to rewatch both of those movies, especially I really love the remake. I thought that was honestly kind of underrated. I don't really think a lot of people dug it, mostly because
You
of
could
the
do
POV. You were talking about Golden. What if there was a slasher that's POV, and that is one? I didn't even think of that. So do you think
I'll
Maniac
rewatch it now that we've
is
had
a
this whole
slasher?
discussion.
Yeah,
So I'll
because
see.
that is a POV slasher movie.
Yeah, because he wants to see the killer, the whole body doing the killing for
Yeah,
his slasher.
Listen,
You
you're
do
not
get
gonna
to
just
kind
take
of
my
see
words
that
and throw 'em
because
back at me.
there's that one scene in the full mirror. You see Elijah Wood just rip that lady's scalp right off her head. Another really nasty horror movie. It's so good.
If we're doing like the remakes and originals, then you do The Thing, which I'm sure you would
The
love.
Thing? Yeah, I mean, I don't think I've watched the original one
And isn't
in a
there
very long
isn't there
time.
2 remakes of it? Because there's the one that I always think of as the original, but it's not the original. The Kurt Russell one is a remake, right?
Right.
Did they remake it again later on?
It's a prequel, and it's got
Gotcha.
it takes place with the Finland team
The ones that
or
try
the
to warn 'em.
Norwegian team, yes. Which which honestly, like, the only like 3 of the characters, the 3 people that escape and that are trying to kill the dog are the Norwegian people. Everyone else is like Mary Elizabeth Winstead and like American actors. Like, so they have English speaking people on the things. They're not. It's not just all subtitled. But yeah, that movie just they cover up practical effects with CGI and it just looks like ass.
See, I feel like that, like The Thing is a different thing, just because a lot of people would probably not realize that that's a remake.
No,
'Cause
it's
it was well
called something
done.
different. It's
We
a
won't get into it.
different.
We do Ring and Ringo. Or that's not really in the same vein as the remakes, right?
It's I was talking about.
Americanizing it.
Yeah.
It's not quite the same as remaking.
Not really. I was
No,
thinking the way
saying
like
the
Town That
original is
Dreaded
The Thing
Sundown.
from Another World, and they're both based off of the short story. And obviously, John
Psycho.
Carpenter likes The Thing from Another World. He uses the same opening for his movie, and in Halloween, he shows that's one of the movies the kids are watching.
Right.
But the script itself is more based off of the source material than the original movie.
Allegedly there's a new version coming out that's based on the Frozen Hell, the more recent re-release of the book that has like excise parts of
Well, yeah, it was a short story, and apparently the author had written a novella version, and they found it in an attic somewhere. I don't know
So
how
it's
it
not
was
it's
back,
not a
but
remake of the
a couple
thing.
years
It's
ago they found it.
it's an adaptation of that.
Yeah, I
version
think
Of
I think
different
the
source
original story is like
material.
Who Goes There or something.
Yes, Who
like that.
Goes There, and this one is called Frozen Hell. I haven't read it, but
It's fine.
yeah, I thought that would be like something we could do. We'll talk about it more. But so that's our show. Follow us on all the socials: Facebook, Blue Sky, Instagram, all that good stuff. Like and subscribe on YouTube. Check out. I did a recently, as of yesterday, I did a episode of my brother's podcast called The Unknown Podcast. It was really fun. We had a little discussion about some movies we watched, and we did a playlist where we talked about some music we all picked out and did that. Golden's got a movie project he's trying to get funded. It is funded. He's looking to get some more funding. He wants to get some names in that movie. So
I want to blow a lot of money on people.
so that's Dingus Day. Look for that on Facebook and on Indiegogo. Anthony, you got anything you want to say?
No.
All right, so that's the show. I'm Mr. Sir.
I'm Golden.
I'm Anthony.
And this was Horror Dork.